Today, let's sew a pillow with some pockets. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today we are continuing with our college dorm room series by making a pillow that has some pockets in it. So for this, I'm using a really soft knit material, but you could definitely use cotton fabric if you had that on hand. And then for the pillow form itself, I'm going to be making my own, but you could definitely buy one. If you are buying one and just skipping ahead to the actual pillow cover with the pocket, go to around minute 155. But I am going to be using this white material to make my own pillow form, and I'll be walking you through the steps of that. What's really funny is after I made all of this, I really like this pillow and will probably be making a second one for myself. So for the pillow form, I'm going to be cutting out two pieces from this white cotton that are around 12.5 inches by 12.5 inches, so just a square. And then once I have those all nice and cut out, I can then go through and pin up 3 of the 4 sides. So on the 4th side, I'm just going to be pinning it up about halfway through, and then this is going to be where I will turn my pillow form right side out after I sew it. So I've gone through, I'm going to be sewing up 3 of those 4 and then leaving a gap in that 4th side so that I can turn this right side out. I'm just using a straight stitch for this, and be sure to backstitch at the beginning and end. Once that seam's done, I'm just going to go through using my pinking shears to kind of finish off the edges a little bit. I'd highly recommend doing some sort of edge finishing just to help with structure. And then I'm going to be turning this right side out. Once I have it turned right side out, I can then go through and add my stuffing. So I'm just used some polyfill and stuff this. And then here is what the pillow looks like. You can definitely make it less lumpy by kind of pushing it and massaging it around. But now for that opening on the side, I'm just going to use a needle and thread and hand sew it closed. I'm not really adding any zippers or buttons or anything, just making this so it's a nice little pillow form. Now is time to work on the cover for our pillow. So here's what my pillow looks like. If you are using a pillow form, you would also be starting at this point now too. So I'm going to be using this blue knit material. Like I said, you can definitely use cotton. If you are using knit, just be sure we're taking into account some stretch items when it comes to sewing, and we can talk about that later. So for the pillowcase itself, I'm going to be cutting this out as 12.5 by 12.5 inches because that's the size that I cut out my pillow. So whatever size your pillow form is, you just want to cut out the fabric in that exact same size. And then you are going to want a third piece that is around 4 to 5 inches shorter than the height of your pillow. So mine is 8 inches by 12.5 inches. On the long edge for that piece that's going to be our pocket, I'm just going to go through and serge that, and then I'll be folding this over by 1/2 of an inch to get a really nice and clean look for our pocket. So I'm just going to serge that long edge for our pocket piece, and then I'm going to be folding this over by 1/2 of an inch and then pinning it in place using my quilting clips. And then once you have that all pinned up, we're just going to be taking that straight stitch all the way through. Now, like I said, mine is a knit material, so it's stretchy, so I'm actually going to be using a lightning stitch for this. If you have a sewing machine that only has a zigzag stitch, it's just a small zigzag stitch. And so I'm just going to go through, use the lightning stitch. I am using a knit foot, and I changed to a walking foot just because it was a little easier for my knit fabric. If you're using non-stretch though, you can just use a straight stitch. Now I'm going to place the wrong side of my pocket with the right side of the front of the pillow. So basically just putting these together so that you can see how that pocket's going to be forming. And then I'm going to pin up the edges on either side. And then in the middle, I'm going to mark where I want to sew a line for like a pocket to be. Now this could be optional. I just wanted mine to have 2 pockets, so that's why I'm dividing this up. And so I'm just going to be sewing that line directly in the middle so that I can have 2 pockets. You could even have this be 3 or multiple if you want. So now I'm going to go to my sewing machine. For mine, I am using that lightning stitch again since it's knit, but if you're using just a regular cotton, you could just use a straight stitch for this and then just sew this up all the way down. Once I have that done, you can see that we now have our little pockets in place. So I'm just going to take this over to my serger and serge all 4 edges. So this is going to help hold the pocket onto the front, as well as give everything just a really nice and clean finish. If you do not have a serger, you could definitely use an overlocking stitch or a zigzag stitch on this portion as well. So here's what my pocket now looks like. You can see that we have those 2 pockets in the front. It turned out really nice and clean. So now it is time for us to add our zipper. So for the zipper, I'm using a 14-inch zipper since mine's 12 inches or so. I find it a little easier to use a zipper that's slightly bigger. And then I'm going to be matching with right sides together. the one edge of the zipper with the bottom edge of the pillow covering. You definitely could have used an invisible zipper if you really want to make sure that you can't see it, but I was fine with what I had on hand. So now I'm going to go through and just sew the zipper into place on the pillow. Now for this, I am going to switch back to just using a regular straight stitch since the zipper has no stretch itself. So I'm just going to go through and take that straight stitch all the way down to sew the zipper in place, being careful of the zipper pull. So now I have one side of the zipper in place. I am not going to be top stitching this as I do not expect it to be opened multiple times. So now I'm just going to repeat to sew the back of the pillow onto the zipper. So matching that back piece with right sides together with the zipper, so very similar to what I did for the front. And then just pinning all of this up, and then I will take that seam all the way down. So this will allow us to have that nice opening we'll be able to use to put our pillow into our pillowcase. So I'm just going to take a seam all the way through there. So now we are on to the last step, and that is making this into one complete pillow covering. So with right sides together, I'm matching the front and the back of my pillow and then pinning up those other three edges all the way around. The one thing that I do want to make sure is very clear on here is where your zipper is, make sure the zipper is opened so that you do have a spot that you can turn this right side out. It'll make it a lot easier. So on mine, I'm just pinning up those three edges. You can see the zipper, I have that opening, and then I'm being sure that the zipper pull itself is within the pillow itself here, and then I'm just going to sew up all three of those edges. I'm going to be using a stretch stitch again since I am using that knit fabric, so I'm going to use the lightning stitch, but you could definitely use whatever type of stitch you have that matches your fabric. So if you're using cotton, you can get away with a straight stitch here. If you're using knit, try a lightning stitch. So now I have turned this right side out. Here is what my pillow covering looks like. It looks so good, and now it's just time to add the pillow inside. Once I have the pillow in, I can then just zip it up. You can adjust this as needed if you want to kind of fluff it a little bit more depending on what your pillow form looks like. So I just kind of played around with mine, got it so it looks nice and neat. And then your pillow is ready to be used. So I think that this turned out really fun. It has those cute pockets to store food, charger, your phone, lipstick, whatever you want to put in there. And I think that this could be a really nice little accessory to have on a dorm room bed. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see next. Thanks for watching.